Where are you, Claire? Ah, great. If you can unmute, I'm just going to bring you in to the video. Claire is brilliant. She's not only got an incredibly busy day job as an audiologist at the Royal Preston, but she just keeps volunteering so much of her time to help us as a group. So, Claire, I'll just let you say and explain what you do for a living, and then we'll move on to Debbie.
I don't know if you've crashed or I've crashed. I'm not having a good time.
I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's good. It's you, apparently. Somebody else has said. Hi, everyone. I'm Claire, for anyone that's not met me. So, as Kevin said, I work as an audiologist at Royal Preston, and I'm currently studying. Debbie is actually my tutor, who's coming on now at Manchester to get my master's my master's modules in balance, so I can help you guys a little bit more. So, basically, I'm here for helping Kevin run his support group. I only came to him for advice, and never left. So hopefully in the future I'll be more used to you helping with things. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell for now.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you. And then just before we hand over to Debbie, the running order today will be Debbie's going to take you through a wonderful presentation on mindfulness. Um, when that presentation is finished, I've just got a couple of announcements and things to mention to all the members. Then we're going to go straight back to Debbie for a question and answer session. So whilst the presentation is on, think of questions that you might want to ask. And if you know how to, type them into the chat. Claire and I will then be monitoring the chat and put questions to Debbie in the second part of the meeting. Don't worry if you don't know how to use the chat, because you will be able to put your hand up and ask a few questions. So my last comment, I had a member ask me earlier this week, why as a support group for balance conditions did we give time in our meetings to people discussing such things as mindfulness? Fair question. All I want to say, because Debbie's going to tell you a lot more, is if we don't gain control of our mind, of our mental strength, it is nigh on impossible to recover from any physical condition. If your mind is racing and exhausted and confused, it is so difficult to make progress on anything. So, in my opinion, what I've seen over the years, our ability to control and harness our mind's power
Hi,
is
sorry,
more
Kevin, before you
important.
continue, Kevin,
Say
there's
again?
somebody called Alistair who's not muted, and there's somebody called Alistair on that's not muted, and they keep.
Okay, if anyone
Sorry, I
can make
was
sure
earlier.
they're muted, please. Okay. Sorry, Claire, and I think I've probably got a bad connection this morning as well. But just finish what I was saying. Why we cover mindfulness, what Debbie's going to cover is so important. If we do not have that rested mind, that clarity of thought, it's so difficult to manage your recovery and, to be honest, deal with everyday challenges of living. So in my view, what Dev is going to talk about is just as important as when we get such as Professor Ray on talking about treatments, diagnosis, etc. I think the two together make for this perfect condition to speed up on our recovery. That's it. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to hand over to Debbie now for a wonderful presentation. There is warning, spoiler alert, there is participation events coming up as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. Over to you, Debbie, if you'd like to share screen and begin, please.
Treatment of chronic dizziness, whether that's persistent postural perceptual dizziness or any kind of dizziness which is there most of the time. And I work in the NHS, I work privately. I also a university lecturer on the subject as well. And so yes, why mindfulness? Why mindfulness? What is mindfulness? Professor Ray is a professor, isn't he? He does all the testing and the analysis and the diagnosis and the treatment. I'm not a professor, but I also do likewise with the testing. And part of treatment is for chronic dizziness, not just vestibular rehabilitation exercises, not just gentamicin injections, but the mind-body link is so important. And so I hope to today, through an experiential type process, show you that mindfulness, whatever we understand mindfulness to be, is very, very important as part of our living well with persistent dizziness. I'd also like to thank both Claire and Kevin for setting up this group. Dizziness, as we know, is a hidden disability, isn't it? No, if I have a broken arm, you say, oh, can I help you? If you're veering from side to side, people might think sadly that you're drunk. So connection to others who really understand the hidden disability of dizziness is really important. So connection, not isolation. That's a concept that we have in the mindfulness community. And finally, Kevin was not a fool by not telling anyone and getting help earlier. That's what lots of us do. It's a frightening thing. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what treatment's available, what we do. He wasn't a fool, but I'm glad that he's doing so well now and set up this wonderful group for you to all connect.
Debbie, just one quickly, we're sharing your notes, not the main screen.
Okay, let's stop that then. And it was share again because you don't want my notes. Absolutely. What about this?
Apologies to everyone, my internet is playing up.
What's that doing now, Kevin?
No,
Is that
still the notes, I'm afraid, not the
we did this just a minute ago, didn't we, Kevin?
Yeah.
And I said if I come out.
Don't worry. I always like to add to all the members watching that we can issue a refund at the end of the meeting.
Let me do
That's
that.
it. That's it. You're in.
No, but I can't now see my thing, you see. Oh, I do need my notes. Bear with me, everyone. And of course, the
No
mindful
problem.
way is putting a breath between one's automatic reaction of I'm appearing an idiot, and just
Now,
saying,
when
it's okay, I'm going to
play
have a
with that,
breath.
I'm going to do some of my announcements while you do that. So, great news for the August meeting. We only do 6 meetings a year, and you will get the dates and email. Professor Peter Ray, who is ex-president of the Royal Society of the Otology Division, he's going to dedicate the entire meeting to your questions. He's not going to present. He wants all the members to think of what treatment or condition questions they may have. Can't stress enough what a wonderful opportunity that is. It normally costs a lot of money to get to see Professor Ray because he's so high up the chain now, it's difficult to see him through the NHS. You will get an email explaining before that how to pre-submit your questions. And it is August, so apologies those that really want to ask questions now. But again, very good of Professor Ray to give so much of his time. But he appreciates there are many, many questions out there, and it can be so difficult to find a consultant to give you the answers. How are we doing, Debbie? Any good? I'm seeing your whole
No, I know.
PowerPoint deck now. It
That's
did
why
work earlier.
that's why I did want to come out a minute ago because we had it, didn't we?
Yeah, no problem. I'll just go on to the next announcement, if I may. A member has asked if we can put out an appeal, and again, this will be emailed to you tomorrow. The member has severe bilateral BPPV, and they will be having a dual canal plugging surgery, which I confess I don't understand the detail of that surgery, but it sounds very significant. Dual canal plugging. They are appealing for any members out there who are attending today or watch the video. If anyone has been through a similar surgery, and are happy to be put in touch with this member, would they let me know? So I'll email that out to you. And for those new members, this is what we do, is put out appeals of questions, challenges members have got to see if there are other members there who can help with their experience. Debbie, are we good?
Not really. I'm not going to get my notes, but I
You'll
should.
be fine. You
Don't
you
know
know
what
what
I've
you
done differently,
yes.
but let's just do that. And you can see now.
Yes, yeah, can see the main slide now.
So just to say, if it's helpful, if the person here is here today with a bilateral BPV canal plugging, the BPV is when you've got chalk crystals in the wrong part of the balance system in the semicircular canals. And then whenever you roll over in bed or look up or bend over, you get this
Right,
short-lived acute dizziness. And that's normally helped by particle repositioning maneuvers like the Epley. But in some cases, they do this plugging on both sides. That's what bilateral means. And that's to stop the crystals move the fluid in the system, in case people were wondering
yeah,
about that.
good.
So,
Super. Over to you, Debbie.
so yes, I gave myself a little bit of an introduction there. What I also just wanted to do quickly before moving on to mindfulness is tell you about the research project. So 3PD is constant low-level dizziness. Many of you may have 3PD, and it's an area of research we're not 100% understanding why it's happening, how we best treat it. And so I've been part of, and many of you actually, thank you for being part of our trial called Stardust, which is at Manchester University. And thank you for everyone's time already. But if you do have chronic dizziness, and particularly we're looking for persistent postural perceptual dizziness that has been diagnosed by a clinician, and you'd like to head over to Manchester, and we are still looking for our last few patients. You need to have 3PD diagnosed. Those are the symptoms just there. An MRI scan within the last 10 years and be anywhere from 18 to 65 years old. So do contact Joshua there. We've got our website there as well. But thank you to everyone who's already participated. And if anyone else is liking to, then please do get in contact. So today, what is mindfulness? This is really going to be a bit of a self-care session if you'll allow yourself some time to have a bit of time for yourself, which so often us people with chronic dizziness are not very good at showing ourselves compassion. With some mindfulness exercises, some opportunities to try out some mindfulness practice, but no obligation, no obligation. All this is invitational. So when we do the practices, if you're not keen on doing them, then do feel free to go and make a cup of tea. But I thought it'd be really useful to actually try some practices. So whenever you see this little icon, we're going to try some practices. What I would say is if you're on a particular difficult day with your symptoms at the moment, you may decide not to do some of these practices, and that's completely fine. If you're in the midst of quite severe anxiety or depression, or if you've got diagnosed PTSD, because mindfulness involves sort of focusing inwards, it can be a bit triggering. So I would suggest you are responsible for your well-being, but it is invitational. You might start and say, I'm not keen on it. You might start and you may love it or have a whole host of sort of experiences. Look after yourself. It's invitational. And if you want to give it a go, fine. If you don't, no worries. So when these things come up with the icon on the left, we will be doing short meditations. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about mindfulness and how it may be a useful as part of a toolkit of things that you have to help you live well with your chronic dizziness. And so then the invitation is to sort of reflect. Do I use these things? May they be useful? And you can reflect as we're going along with a pen and paper, or you can reflect after. And all this mindfulness stuff, I'm a mindfulness teacher. It introduces you to tools, a part of your toolkit for living well with dizziness. whether that's living well with symptoms or getting rid. But it's really useful, obviously, to do it in conjunction with someone in charge of your medical care, whether that's someone like Professor Ray or a vestibular rehabilitation specialist, because these techniques do not necessarily get rid of your dizziness, they're part of a toolkit. So I would be interested to know what people understand by the word mindfulness, because I don't think it's got a very good press, has it really? Bit hippy dippy, or just a bit of a waste of time sitting at the top of a mountain, like that. So does anyone want to write in chat what they understand about what mindfulness is? So someone said, I think it's bringing your attention to now and noticing sensations rather than thinking about past and future. Fantastic, Rosie. Yeah. Anyone else? Being in the present, not the past or the future. Absolutely. Gathering thoughts, relaxing, blocking out unhelpful mental noise. Whoops. Ugh. What else have people written? Maybe Claire, you could read it out, anything out, or Kevin, because I can see my screen has gone again. Right.
Yeah, we've got quite a few comments bringing attention to now, as I understand
Yeah.
it. Sandy said she has no clue, so hopefully that will improve in the next hour. Relaxing, quiets the mind, awareness, observing without judgment, compassionate self-awareness.
So can I say, Kevin, that there are some superb, very correct answers, which is great to see, because when I first started this years and years ago, we wouldn't have got the same sort of answers, and there would have been a much more sort of suspect, dodgy kind of, oh, I'm not quite sure what it is, whether it's for me at all. And mindfulness is for everyone if you choose. It's a way of being and living, actually. But the best way to experience what mindfulness is, along with all these words, is actually to try it. So if people are happy, I will lead you through a brief awareness meditation to see what you are noticing. And mindfulness at its root is awareness. So if you're wanting to join me then it's important just to get yourself in a nice, comfortable posture. Comfortable, so not holding yourself tightly, but not flopping all over the place. Lots of people meditate with eyes closed. I'm aware that that might make your dizziness worse. So eyes open is absolutely fine. And knowing that you can stop at any time if it's not for you. So I'll just give you a few minutes just to get into that posture. And then I'm going to close my eyes, but as I said, there's no need for you to close your eyes. So throughout all those messages, what is mindfulness, my screen not working, and all those excellent definitions of mindfulness. Yes, let's just come to the here and now, this present moment. I'm going to try and let go all the fact that my screen is not sharing well. And mindfulness is about awareness, what we're noticing in our minds, our bodies, our breath. So find that comfortable posture, upright but comfortable. And of course, when we still, sometimes we notice our dizziness more. So let's take our attention down to points of stability. Let's take our attention maybe to the feet on the floor, rooting and grounding you. The bottom on the seat. Whatever your head is telling you, whether it's telling you that you're dizzy or not, those points of stability, the floor and the bottom on the seat, are rooting and grounding you not only to this present moment, but giving you useful information, correct information, that you are stable. And then let's just broaden our awareness a bit and seeing what we're noticing in our bodies. There's no right or wrong way to feel or to notice, but maybe scan slowly from head to toe, seeing what you notice. Any nice sensations, any comforting sensations, or any less comfortable holding tension. Just observe without changing. And if your attention immediately goes to your dizziness, that's okay. Just say thank you, dizziness, but no thank you at the moment. I'm attending to any other sensations I can notice in the body. Warmth, tingling, heaviness, or maybe tension and holding and discomfort. Just note. And then taking an in-breath and on the out-breath, allowing your body to dissolve in your awareness and bringing your awareness maybe to your breath. Can you be an observer of the breath? Can you watch it as it moves in and out of the body? And sometimes that can be difficult to observe the breath. We think we can't breathe. We might stop breathing. If that's you, that's fine. Take your attention back to the body. But see if you can just observe the breath, the sensations of the breath in the body. How does it feel, the breath? How would you describe it to someone? Where are you noticing the breath move the body the most? Is it changing over time? So always in an awareness meditation, observing and not trying to change. And always knowing in meditation, your mind will wander to a whole host of things, what you're going to have for lunch, your thoughts about this meditation, something you forgot to do. That is normal. You are human, minds think. When you notice that, you bring your attention back and we're observing the breath, the nature of the breath in the body. And then letting the breath carry on breathing itself. And taking our attention to our thoughts. Can you imagine yourself sitting maybe on a grassy bank and looking up at the sky? And the sky is your brain, and the clouds and weather patterns are your thoughts. So can you just look up at the sky and watch the clouds as they arise, they stay a while, and then they go. Can you be an observer of your thoughts? You may find that the sky is clear blue or dark, and no real thoughts. Or it may be chock-a-block with thoughts. There's no right or wrong way to notice or to feel. But what is normal is you've found that you've jumped upon one of the thoughts and got entangled in. If you've noticed that, again, say thank you thought. We're just observing. So jump off that thought and go back to the grassy bank and look up. Maybe you find this quite hard, just to observe your thoughts or even just to sit still. So notice maybe how this meditation is making you feel, good or less good. But try and welcome all. And then broadening your awareness to the weight of the body, sitting on the couch or the chair. Those points of grounding stability, the bottom on the seat, the feet on the floor. The breath moving in and out of the entire body. Noises maybe inside your room or from more distant. And when you're ready, if your eyes were closed, gently blink them open. So a time to reflect now or later, and maybe people would like to write a few things in the chat box about what they noticed, good or bad. Claire, I don't know whether you'd like to start us off. What did you notice?
I'm mainly having so many technical issues that I'm very distracted by them and found it very hard to follow. But like you said, I just enjoy being able to stop, being given permission to stop.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Could someone read them out, actually, just because I'm worried about
Yeah,
listening?
Debbie, I'll read you my own.
Yeah.
I was falling asleep, so nicely relaxed. My leg muscle twitched, which only happens when I'm sort of entering a sleep mode. So just find it incredibly restful, and soothing but strangely or not, far easier to do when I'm following your instruction than trying to do it myself.
Absolutely. So many good points there. So there's no right or wrong way to feel, and mindfulness is not about relaxing. It's about awareness. And actually, sometimes when we're really, really, really distracted, as Claire was, that's when we should actually do it. And it's not about having this peaceful, calm mind and about feeling relaxed, although that can be a secondary thing too. It's all about awareness. And once we are aware, we can choose how to respond. And that is the power of mindfulness, good or bad. And especially when things are more difficult, that is really useful. Can someone else read out some more of the things?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. We've got one comment saying noticed my tinnitus a lot more.
Yes.
Which, to be fair, I did myself. I've currently got an ear infection, and I noticed I became a lot more aware of the pulsating noise and all the rest of it. Not that it bothered me, but it was interesting.
So that's interesting, of course, and this is why I said it was invitational, because if your tinnitus is particularly bad, or your dizziness is particularly bad, or you're feeling really quite anxious or low, because mindfulness is about awareness, we're not distracting ourselves away from the tinnitus or the dizziness or the low mood. Okay, but actually,
Rosie said she noticed her vertigo more, and it was made her slightly anxious.
yeah, absolutely. So that is difficult, and it may be at that point that an awareness meditation is not a good meditation for you. What would be a more useful meditation is to intentionally take the attention away from the dizziness to a point of stability. So you may feel dizzy as if you're moving. The floor, I would imagine, is not moving. So taking the attention intentionally away from the dizziness to the point of stability can be very useful. But I think the thing is that and the same with tinnitus. And for those of you with tinnitus, it's quite nice to have something. If you immediately sit in a quiet room, I have tinnitus, I immediately notice my tinnitus. Okay. Now
Yeah, lots of comments about tinnitus.
I'm okay with my tinnitus at the moment. Do you want to read some more of the comments out?
Well, Vimla said her tinnitus got louder. Sandy brought awareness to the tinnitus. Is it Julia? Sorry, my eyesight is horrible. Was surprised and pleased that her tinnitus seemed to subside, which is a different view that somebody's had.
All is good. Some people notice the tinnitus louder because they're in a quiet room. Some people notice their tinnitus softer because they're actually relaxing, and quite often tinnitus, and they're giving themselves permission, as you said, Claire, to take some time out for themselves. It can be either way, and there's no right or wrong. And so part of mindfulness is checking in with your body and your breath and your thoughts and using an appropriate meditation at that time. If you sit in a quiet room and immediately all you hear is tinnitus, that is really can be incredibly distressing and horrible. It may be that you can then put some gentle music on in the background, not so that it masks out your tinnitus, but just so that it distracts your attention away from the tinnitus. And then over time, you can have the skills to take your attention away from the tinnitus to something else so that the tinnitus becomes less apparent. And it's the same with the dizziness. But what we find is there's this mind-body link. Okay, when we notice tinnitus, or dizziness, what happens in our bodies? You don't think, oh, that's really lovely and nice and relaxed. You're probably holding your breath. You're probably more tense. You're holding your body. And you get into this vicious cycle of the brain identifying dizziness or tinnitus as a threat and then setting off the sympathetic nervous system arousal. You tensing your body and breathing poorly will make the brain think there's even more of a threat. And we get into this horrible cycle. So mindfulness can also help you be aware of that cycle and say, it's okay. The tinnitus isn't nice. The dizziness isn't nice, but I am not going to go like that. And I'm going to go like that. And then that might help with the symptoms as well. So this mind, body, breath link between symptoms, whether it's tinnitus or dizziness, and us being aware. Once we're aware, we can choose how we respond. And so that's what mindfulness is. It's paying attention in a non-judgmental way to what's happening in all these different things, our surroundings, our breath, our body, our thoughts, our feelings. And once we're aware, we can choose how to respond. So although it's completely natural to feel dizzy and go, oh, what we might want to do is to learn to go, and just relax our body and relax our breath and all these different techniques that we can apply when our dizziness or tinnitus is bad. But without being aware, our brains, our bodies, they'll act on automatic pilot. Present moment, what is happening? Are we worried about the future? Are we dwelling on the past? Non-judgmental, are we labeling how we're feeling or what we're doing with our symptoms in a negative way? Present moment, non-judgmental awareness, and showing ourselves some compassion as well, some kindness. So often with dizziness, we beat ourselves up for having the dizziness and not being a good carer or parent or work colleague. We would never do that. We would never suggest that was the case for our colleagues or our family. So showing ourselves some compassion as well and being aware whether we're showing ourselves compassion. So some reflection for you. How are your mindfulness skills? Do you have present moment full awareness? Or are you focusing on your dizziness or focusing on your tinnitus? If you're doing the latter, you're absolutely human, don't beat yourself up. It's a normal response, but maybe it's not a helpful response. So if we're aware we're constantly focusing on our dizziness, we can maybe choose not to do that. Are we observing or reacting to our symptoms? Okay, so we have a sort of habitual automatic response. Threat, absolutely. If you're acutely dizzy, a great response to have, because you don't want to jump in the car if you're spinning all over the place. However, is that every time you notice a little bit of low level dizziness actually helpful? No. Once we're aware of this cycle, we can say, okay, I feel horrible. What I'm going to do is a ground. Yeah. This dizziness now is not a threat. My brain is choosing to make it a threat. And actually, that's not helpful. It's understandable, but it's not helpful. So, are you observational or reacting to your symptoms? Are you non-judgmental? And then again, another human characteristic, dizziness is a threat, it's bad, I need to get rid of it. I need to get rid of it. I need to get rid of it, all my tinnitus, before I can live a full and active life. Okay? The more we try and get rid, the more we try and focus on the gap between where we are and where we want to get to. And therefore, we notice it more, we keep up this vicious circle. So strange though it may be and difficult though it may be, if we can learn to live with it, then actually that is often the way that chronic pain and chronic dizziness diminishes over time. It is not the normal thing that people do, but it can be done. And self-compassion, we've already talked about. So maybe you might want to spend a bit of time reflecting on those things and see where you are. Yeah, so just looking at a few more of these things, the breath became shallow because you were focusing on your tinnitus. Yeah, and see, that's interesting. And that's what happens because tinnitus is a threat to the brain. The brain's not happy with it. And so we spark off the sympathetic nervous system, which is a shallow breath, so we can run away, we can flee from that lion who's chasing us. Now you've noticed, Deborah, and I think it's Len, that when you focus on your tinnitus, your breath gets shallow. Now you're aware of that. Maybe when you notice your tinnitus next time, you can focus on your breath and so incorporate some breathing techniques to calm that down. I'm just looking at some of all that. Len, I try and enjoy my dizziness as a theme park ride. Fantastic, Len. I'm not sure I can do that when I get dizzy, but yes, it's how are we labeling the dizziness? Are we labeling it as a threat, or are we labeling it as something that we can at least be okay with? So lots of really interesting comments here. So a little bit of time of reflection. So coming a little bit more specifically, we went through body, breath, and mind, didn't we? So our bodies and our breath are early warning signs or early indicators of what's happening. And what we do is we spend too much time up here thinking, sorting, fixing, analysing. And actually that's the problem with chronic dizziness and to some extent tinnitus. The more we try and focus on getting rid, the more we notice and the more it persists. The more we miss the warning signs coming up from our body and our breath. So in continuing with the mindfulness thing about awareness, can you from time to time during the day check in with your body? Are you, or are you more like this? Or are you somewhere in between? What is your body telling you? Is your body tired? Does it need a break? Your breath. How are you breathing? Some people noticed just then that when they focus in on their tinnitus, they were breathing really shallowly. Now, when you breathe really shallowly, that's a time for the brain to think, gosh, something's really, really wrong. Okay, so rather than waiting for the tinnitus or dizziness to get up here, if we check in and see we're like that and see we're in turn breathing quite shallowly, we can then make an active decision to take a rest, to take a break, and to relax our body, to do a body scan, to do some relaxation exercises, to try some breathing and relaxation techniques with our breath. Everyone get their fist. And then really, 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 really tense it, tense it, tense it, tense it, tense it. What's happened to your breath? I should imagine you've stopped. So release your fist. Okay, so that's an overkill explanation of when we're holding our bodies very tightly, we breathe very poorly, we'll feel dizzier, we'll notice our tinnitus more. Let us check in with our bodies and check in with our breath and see what they're telling us and see whether we need to stop and change them. People notice during that awareness meditation, they notice their dizziness and their tinnitus more. So mindfulness is intentionally taking your attention where you want it to be. So it can be on your dizziness, it can be on your tinnitus, or you can take it to a point of stability. So again, let's try that now. Grounding is what I call it. So get into that comfortable position. Check in with the body, check in with the breath. And let's intentionally take our attention wherever it is at the moment to our feet on the floor. A funny place to take our attention, but I hope that your floor is stable. I hope that your floor is not moving. So whatever your head is telling you, your feet are stable on the floor. Feel the points of contact rooting and grounding you to the floor. And then you might like to say, the floor is stable. Therefore, I am stable. Therefore, I am safe. And you'll flick up to your dizziness or your tinnitus, but you'll say, no, thank you. We're taking our attention to our feet. The floor is stable. I am stable. I am safe. And almost you're thanking your brain for alerting you that it worries that there's something wrong, but actually there's nothing wrong. This is an inappropriate threat response that your brain is giving you. I am safe, brain. The tinnitus hasn't got a sinister cause. The dizziness hasn't got a sinister cause. And then maybe you just might like to focus on the breath as a mechanism of grounding. And you can do that maybe by counting the breath. Doing this at your own rate. So breathing in for one and out for one. And in for one and out for one. And when you get to 10, you come back and you start again at 1. So now we're intentionally taking our attention on the breath as a mechanism for grounding and distraction. And you will flick up to your tinnitus, or you'll flick up to your head and you'll say, no, thank you. I know you're there. I am focusing on my breath. And then you might like to slow your counting, slow your breath. In for 2 and out for 2. And if the breath isn't grounding and it's difficult for you, focus on your feet or the points of contact between your seat and the chair. And then let's come back to the room. So again, everyone's toolkit's going to be different, but focusing on getting the skill of intentionally taking your attention where you want it, whether it's on a complex task at work or whether it's away from your dizziness to your feet on the floor and something grounding. To ground you to a response that your body is appropriate, rather than telling you that you're dizzy and evoking that threat response, which then spirals. The more dizziness you notice, the more threat the brain notices, the more worried it gets, and we spiral out of control. And it's rather like we're comforting a small person who's fallen over. You don't go, oh my God, what's happening? You know, you've got a good big graze on your knee. You go, it's okay. It's not life-threatening. You're fine. Let's take our attention away. Let's breathe. So those grounding techniques, there's lots of different grounding techniques. There's lots of different relaxation techniques and a whole host of different techniques. And what works for you may not work for me. And so it's important that you work out what works for you. I hated the breath. I couldn't breathe. It made me anxious. I thought I was going to hyperventilate. Now it's my practice of choice. When I'm wanting to calm my body, when I'm wanting to take my attention away from, I suffer quite badly from anxiety from time to time. So I can choose to focus in on that ball of anxiety, where I can breathe and let the anxiety dissolve. You can do the same with tinnitus and dizziness. Another concept is we always focus on what we want to get rid of. And as I said, when we're focusing on what we want to get rid of, there's always that gap between where we want to be and where we are, and we focus more on it and we notice it more. So what about the concept, which is by Joey Remini, of desired sensations? How do you want to feel, not what you want to get rid of? And so she leads a lovely meditation, which again is grounding, rather than focusing in on our dizziness that we want to get rid and pushing it away. How do we want to feel? Can we remember back to a time or a place or a situation where we felt at ease, calm, peaceful? And can we visualize that? And can we draw that into our body? So that's the desired sensation meditation, or letting in the good. We are hardwired for negativity, and that's evolutionary. If we didn't notice a threat, then we might be dead tomorrow. So that's good in some senses. If a car's about to run you over, if there's a lion behind you, but not so good with some of our chronic health conditions. And we're very good at focusing in on threats and not noticing all the wonderful stuff around us, letting in the good. Pacing is another concept we use a lot in mindfulness. And pacing is all about making sure you don't boom and bust. If you're dizzy, if you've got tinnitus, you're taking much more energy of your brain and of your body to not feel dizzy and to balance and to get on with things. Okay, and that's very, very draining. So lots of people with chronic dizziness will also have brain fog or cognitive fatigue. I don't think about balancing. You guys probably do, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So the idea of pacing is to not overwhelm the system so that you don't go to boom and bust, and you have regular breaks, which again requires checking in with the body and the breath. So rather than working the whole day through, you set little alarms and think, okay, how am I feeling? Am I tense? Am I breathing well? Do I need a rest? Is my dizziness bad? Is my tinnitus bad? And the 4 P's of pacing: plan, prioritize, pace, and pleasure. And to that, I would add present moment awareness, which is the mindfulness. Okay, so I've decided I'm going to have a few breaks. I'm going to do this piece of work and that piece of work, then pick up my kids, etc., etc. Halfway through the day, I check in. I think, gosh, I'm feeling awful. That's my present moment awareness. And so then I alter my plan so that I don't have to leave early and then have a dizzy attack for a few days. So 5 P's of pacing. We often we focus on those things that we have to do rather than those things which give us joy, because we don't have enough energy to do both. And my invitation is to say, you go down this exhaustion funnel. So we need to have equal numbers of what we call sustainers, things you love doing, and drainers, things that you have to do when we're thinking about pacing. So don't just focus in on work and housework and etc., etc. In that pacing regime, have stuff for you. self-compassion. This is another slide I use with my patients. It's okay to ask for help. So suddenly when we're very, very dizzy, we seem to think that we need to do everything on our own, that we shouldn't moan about it, that we shouldn't ask for help, that it's our problem, this hidden disability. No, it wouldn't be like that to your loved ones, to your colleagues, to your friends. And it's okay to ask for help. And this feeds in with the self-compassion. It's not your fault that you're dizzy. If your friend or your loved one got cancer or broke a leg, would you say, for God's sake, get on with it? Of course not. So just be aware and reflect again. During these times, if you're chronically dizzy, are you focusing in on your needs as well as your families or your colleagues or your friends? Are you blaming yourself? You're not good enough. I'm letting others down. Will I ever get better? Where are your thoughts? So another time for reflection. And remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. If you go on and on and on without the breaks, without pacing, you will crash. As everyone does, even those without dizziness. How many people do we know, sadly, these days who burn out because they're not looking after themselves or they're asked to do too much at work? So self-compassion is also a part of mindfulness. Mindfulness is awareness. Awareness, looking into ourselves. Are we looking after ourselves? And then two more advanced techniques in mindfulness. We've talked about intentionally taking the attention away from symptoms and grounding and relaxing and breathing well. But we also need to be aware that sometimes there are things that we need to turn towards and change our attitudes towards. And this thing about primary and secondary suffering. So primary suffering then is dizziness, which is there, which you'll not be able to do anything about at the moment. Whether it's spinning from BPV, whether it's 3PD, lightheadedness. Okay, so that's there and it's horrid and it's not your fault and there's not a lot you can do about it at the moment. However, how we respond to the symptoms, we can change, difficult though it may be. Okay, so our emotional response to the symptoms can give the secondary suffering. So if your baseline dizziness is at 5 out of 10, we can resist it, we can get cross with it, we can get anxious about it, we can get despondent about it, and that's our secondary suffering, which we do have control over. That might take it to a level of 8 out of 10. So if we're aware of the impact of our secondary suffering exacerbating our primary symptoms, again, over time, we can learn how to switch that secondary suffering off, which in turn lowers the impact of the dizziness. This is a much more advanced technique, however, so it probably needs a little bit of counselling going on with it. Because for me to say, oh, well, don't get anxious about it, and nowhere am I saying that. But can you see how that dizziness, if you've got 3PD at the moment, you can't do a lot about it. It's not going to magically disappear, but you can change and be aware of your responses to it. So let's now become aware of our thoughts and our emotions with respect to our dizziness. And remember that we do, and again, we may need some additional help and some counselling, we do have control over our thoughts. Not all our thoughts are facts, even those that say they are. Okay, so many of you may have had some CBT where you challenge the negative thoughts. Something is serious wrong with me, I'll never get better. The mindfulness approach is saying, okay, thank you, thought. I don't think you're correct, and I'm not going to jump upon you and get entangled in you. Hello, thought, thank you, thought, goodbye, thought. Okay, so if we're aware that we've got lots of these negative thoughts coming, how we respond to that thought and how it impacts us can be very useful. What we dwell on, we become. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we're hardwired for negativity. That's normal, but let's take some time to focus on the good, to focus on the positive. That's just the role of anxiety in our thoughts and the interplay between our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, and our bodily reactions. Now, again, mindfulness is useful for this because if we're not switched on to the sensations in our bodies, to the thoughts we're having, if we're not aware of that, then how can we know there's a problem? How can we know that maybe we're not working and responding in the most helpful way? And obviously, understandably, lots of people will say, well, I won't go out to the shops to see my friends just in case. And that's completely understandable, but actually it's not helpful. And what we tend to do with this normal anxiety response is overestimate the danger of what might happen and underestimate our abilities to cope. But with all this thing, the mindfulness, the awareness is important so that we can then choose to carry on as we're doing because you may be having appropriate responses, or choose to change the way we respond, change the way we manage our thoughts, change the way that we lead our lives so we give ourselves more time to relax, change our ways that we intentionally take our attention away from the dizziness. Or change the way we feel about our dizziness. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to fall in love with it and it be your bosom buddy. However, if we can learn to be okay with it and react to it differently, then that in the mindfulness field, especially with chronic pain, has been shown to really help diminish those symptoms. So rather than trying to get rid of it, trying to distract all the time, yeah, those are useful things, but every time that tinnitus comes, that dizziness comes, and we take our attention away, we're not learning to live with it. So can we turn towards it with curiosity? And again, this is an advanced technique that you'd want to do with a vestibular rehabilitation specialist or a counsellor. Can we learn to be able to be with it? Because of course, many of you will have come across vestibular rehabilitation where we intentionally do movements that create the dizziness to help our brains recalibrate from it. If all we've ever been doing is learning to distract ourselves and not being able to be with it, and if every time we create dizziness, we get an anxiety response, that recalibration, that compensation process won't work. Because why would it? Why would the brain change what it doing for you? Because it thinks there's a threat. So we want to learn to be okay with it. So that when it comes on, we don't go, oh, I can't cope. It's okay. I may need a break. I may need to breathe. I may need to do something different. Or it's rather like a nasty medication that it tastes horrible, but you know that it's doing you good if you're doing some vestibular rehabilitation exercises. Not, I will only get on with life until I get rid of all my symptoms. Really, really, really difficult, but you guys can do it. But you guys probably need some support. This is from the a sort of grief concept from Tompkins. You could say, right, I'd need to get rid of the grief or the dizziness or the tinnitus before I get on with life. And actually, the Tompkins model of grief is saying, of course, you're probably not going to get rid of it. You've lost a loved one. But rather than it encompassing all your life, can you grow your life around it? So can you live a full and meaningful life even if you continue to have dizziness? Okay. Now, if you do that, ironically, often the dizziness goes because you're not so fixated on getting rid of the dizziness. So this is where we turn towards the dizziness. Once we have our grounding, once we have our distraction. Yeah. So if we turn towards and it's too difficult, we ground with the feet or the breath or the body. And we do it just maybe a little bit of head movement, just maybe closing our eyes. And rather than, it's okay, I don't like you, but I'm okay with you. Knowing that if I'm not okay with you today, because I've had an awful day, I can ground and take my attention away. But again, you want to do this with someone, a counselor, I think, or a VR specialist. When you can get little bits of dizziness and be okay with it, you can then do some more movement. So I use mindful movement and qigong and yoga. And now we're moving with the breath. So it's a moving meditation. We're keeping the breath good. We're keeping the body soft. And yeah, we are evoking little bits of dizziness, but now we're okay with it. And then you can move on to vestibular rehabilitation that I'm sure so many of you done, the ×1, the ×2, the head movements, the standing exercises. What I find is that people for 3PD give these exercises much too early. So all they're doing is evoking lots of symptoms, which then evoke anxiety and worry and fear, and that recalibration process doesn't occur. Yeah, you need to know that it's not a threat. You need to be okay with what to do if it gets too bad. You need to be okay about evoking it. It's a nasty medicine. It tastes nasty. No one's saying it doesn't. No one's saying evoking dizziness is nice, but actually being okay with it can allow that central compensation, the recalibration process of the brain to occur, to turn down the amplification of the dizzy signals, to help you use your balance organs more than your vision, to turn down your visual sensitivity. Knowing that if it's too difficult, you can ground, you can breathe, you can take your attention away. So lots and lots of stuff there. What you need to do if you're interested is introduce some of these concepts into your life. And what so many people say, myself included, I don't have time. Okay, you do not need to be sitting for half an hour ago for a day focusing on your breath. You can do little mini mindful moments. In the NHS, Claire and I, and probably if there are other clinicians, wash our hands a lot. So I could be thinking, oh gosh, what are we going to do about Claire? Or God, I'm running behind. Or I could say, no, I'm actually not going to think about Claire or my next patient or whatever. I'm going to take my attention to washing my hands. Instead of doing the same thing when you're multitasking in the morning, getting the kids ready for school, let's really focus in on washing up, on the kettle boiling. Let's slow our walking down a little bit. Quite good little acronyms here. Stop. Stop. Take a breath. Observe. Do I need a break? And then proceed. Feet on floor, bottom on chair. Awareness. So can you try, if you're wanting to try some of these techniques, do these little mindful moments. Can you eat your lunch? Can you eat your apple mindfully? Can you smell your coffee? Can you drink that mindfully? So I just wanted to end with a little more lying down meditation. If people have got the time, what are we, about 10 past? Before I take the questions at the end. So the invitation then is to find somewhere comfortable, a comfortable chair or a couch where you can lie down, because allowing the weight of your body when we're dizzy to be fully supported by something stable, whatever our head's telling us, can be really, really useful. Me getting you to focus on breathing and relaxing the body when you're sat up is difficult. So my invitation would be, if you've got somewhere, if you don't, that's fine, but just find yourself in a relaxed as a position as possible. And again, eyes open or closed. If the tinnitus is there, then maybe put a little bit of music on or something, or have other sounds there. Even just something like the telly in the background, not to block it out, but just to take the attention away. Invitational, if it's not for you, if you've had enough, go off and make a quick cup of tea. Do whatever you want to do. But just trying to allow now, as we come into our final meditation, the weight of the body to be fully supported by whatever you're sitting or you're lying on. No tension is needed. Allow your body to become heavy, fully supported. So again, if you're feeling that dizziness, you're intentionally taking your attention away from that dizziness to the support of that stable, comfortable surface. Giving the weight of your body to gravity. And can you allow your breath to be soft with that more relaxed, heavy body? And it may be that your body's full of tension, full of dizziness or tinnitus, and that's fine. Be accepting of that. Be okay with that. And with that heavy, supported body, can we notice the sensations of the breath as it moves in and out of the body? So you might be able to notice an expansion on the in-breath and a relaxation, a subsiding on the out-breath. Sometimes putting your hands on your belly, the hands moving up and down. Or are you noticing your chest move more? And that is a little bit of an anxious breath. Don't worry if that's you today, but our breathing techniques can be really useful for activating the rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. Heavy body, relaxed body, supported body, safe body. Soft breath. Can we take our attention to the jaw? Can we allow the jaw to be soft, to be relaxed, hang slightly open? We hold a lot of tension in our jaws. Can we soften the skin over our face or imagine it softening it? Eyes, can they sink deep into their sockets? Feeling that head fully supported by the surface that you're lying on if you're lying on. Or just put a hand on your head just to feel your head supported by the neck on the shoulders. And then we can also use the breath to soften, to relieve tension if we're noticing lots of tension in our bodies. So a common area that we hold tension is the shoulders. And so can we imagine maybe breathing into our shoulders and on the out breath, softening the shoulders? Allowing the breath to soothe and calm. Breathing into any areas of tension that may be present for you today and softening them on the out breath. And if they're not softening, that's fine. Just observe. The more we force relaxation, the less likely it is to happen. But maybe that's your body saying, actually, I need a bit more of time from time to time to relax, to tension release. If the physical areas of tension aren't relaxing, then maybe you can breathe in and breathe out, imagining relaxation or imagining that tension leaving your body. And then another way of using the breath is to imagine breathing in what you need at this precise time. It may be calm, peacefulness, softness, contentment. If you were to have one thing right now for you, what would it be? And then can you imagine your breath saturated with whatever you need for you right now? And then using the breath to breathe in what you need, and the out breath to allow it to saturate the whole of your body, fill the whole of your body. Breathing in what you need and allowing it to fill the whole body, even if it's just a suggestion. And then take your attention back to those points of contact with your back, your feet, your bottom, and the chair or the couch. Those points of stability before you open your eyes. So we have whizzed through a lot of stuff. You may have hated it, you may have found some of it useful, you may be somewhere in between, you may already have a mindfulness practice. Mindfulness is not a cure-all, it's a way of being. It can help you. I don't have dizziness, I use it in my everyday life. It's secular, it doesn't have religious connotations, it does if you want it to. Christian people use meditation, Buddhists use meditation. It's a way of living that by checking on and being aware about what's happening in our minds, our bodies, our thoughts, it can be useful in our everyday life. Our bodies are amazing, but we switch off from our signals from our body and our breath, and we switch off from our thoughts, some of which are revolutionary, some of which are very, very negative and disruptive, especially if we have dizziness or tinnitus. So maybe my invitation is just to have a little bit of a reflect and try some of these things. And if it doesn't float your boat, it doesn't float your boat. It's not for everyone. So there are lots of mindfulness techniques and mindfulness websites that Kevin will send you. I'm part of the Breathworks organization. I'm going to give a shameless plug of a whole set of mindfulness meditations specifically designed for tinnitus and dizziness, going in to what I said in a bit more detail, which you can buy if you so wish, or ask people, ask your clinicians to refer you for some mindfulness. There's lots of mindfulness going on for chronic pain. That's the most evidence-based, or there is some mindfulness for those of you with tinnitus. And I've given you a 4-minute grounding meditation there. And then there's a community of practice. So a meditation, the Breathworks meditation set of people. We talked about connecting with others who really understand how you know, how you feel. And so there's my dizziness and tinnitus group as part of the broader community of practice on mindfulness with lots of free resources. That's part of the course. So that's me. I also now see people privately as well. If there's different levels, you can do it yourself, you can do it with a clinician, you can do it with a specialist, you can do various courses, or you can just be more mindful in your everyday life. Or it can maybe not be for you. But that's all I think I've got to say. I'm sorry that I hope I didn't have my notes, which is very distressing for me. But I hope that I more or less made sense. And as I always include a bit too much, really, we've whizzed through a bit. Where can I find a vestibular rehabilitation specialist? So what are we wanting to do? Do we want a bit of a stretch and then come back? What is the time? It is 20 past, isn't it?
Debbie, if you can stop share for a minute, because we're just gonna rest you for 5 minutes to get your breath. And we're going to come back in 5 minutes with questions for you. Can I say, though, how wonderful the presentation is to see? It's a presentation about mindfulness, but so focused on our challenges with balance conditions. There are many people who talk about mindfulness and present generic or general techniques, but it's wonderful to see how you've applied that to the very real situations we find ourselves in. So it's incredibly useful, incredibly helpful. But just pause for 5 minutes, take a breath, have a glass of water. Don't worry about your lack of notes because it's been superb. So just rest up, and I'm going to now bring in someone else just to have a chat with us. Are you there, Steve? Let me see if I can find Steve. Oh, I've got so many people on my screen. There you go, Steve. I'm going to
Yeah.
bring you in. Now, for those who are new to the group, they might not have seen Steve, and apologies if my internet is still breaking up. Steve was in a wonderful article in the Daily Mail a few months ago that got so many people out there who didn't know we existed to find us. So that was brilliant in itself. Steve then earned himself the position of official manager of PR for the group that has a salary of zero. I think he's probably on to be our political lobbyist as well when Steve tells you about what he's just been up to. So Steve is a wonderful example of positive affirmative action on behalf of all of us, not just our group, but everyone with a balance problem. Um, and Steve went off to see his MP. So, Steve, just tell us in a couple of minutes what you did and how it went, please.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's been interesting a few months actually. Getting involved more with the group, which has been great. Thank you, because it's helped me so much. Many of you know my story, so I won't bore you with that. But I'm a fellow balance sufferer, so I know what it's about and the difficulties we find. But I arranged to meet with my MP just to see if I could raise awareness as much as anything of the difficulties that we struggle with. So I just managed to book in on one of their questions. You can book a slot with your MP. So I did that. I was really nervous, wasn't quite sure, but I spoke to Kevin and we planned a little bit of a form of attack of what we were going to do. But I was, the fundamental thing was to try and explain, which I find difficult, the struggles that we have. And the impact it has on our lives, and to try and just get some understanding. And then we with Kevin, we kind of discussed the three main objectives that we wanted to try and achieve. And this was based not just on my experience over the last 6 years, but also we used Claire's survey results, which was really helpful. So I took that with me, and what I was led to believe was going to be 10 minutes with an MP, and that's all you get. I was in there for 40 minutes, which was fantastic. So she showed a lot of empathy and was very shocked with kind of have to go through, and was very unaware of these sort of conditions. So yeah, so it was really good. The three main focuses that we were looking at was speedy referrals from GPs, not 15 months to even get to see somebody that knows a little bit more than just, oh, you must have an infection or a virus. We spoke about then, whilst you are waiting for your referral, being signposted for support. Something that helped me tremendously was Life on the Level, when I thought I was on my own and no one understood, because I couldn't explain what was going on. I didn't understand what was going on with me. And Life on the Level, as we all know, is such a wonderful place to feel understood, and the fact you're not alone. So if GPs knew about Life on the Level, just one simple thing, then people could get support while they're waiting, and then they don't realize, they realize they're not going mad, and all the anxiety and worry that we've even spoke about today, that creeps in and takes over. And the third thing was potentially getting some centre of excellence set up, regional centres of excellence, and that was quite interesting, because the MP that I was talking to said that is right, in line with what the government are looking at. So she was really keen on that and said, yes, this is the sort of thing that they're looking into anyway, and they want to happen for various things. So so we had really good discussions, really positive outcome. From my point of view, just receiving that information, she took it all on board, took it away with her, and she's said that what she would like to do, and I said what I would like to happen, would be to, she wants to raise it in Parliament. She wants to arrange a meeting for hopefully myself, Kevin, to meet with a senior minister to discuss it further, which was the best outcome for me that I could have hoped for. It wasn't just, oh, thanks very much, that's nice, move on. So yeah, so
honestly, that is great, and you made a lot more progress than I expected. My only worry is when they say they're hoping the government will look into it. I seem to remember we were going to get a high-speed rail line in this country about 30 years ago, and it's still not happened.
Having
Thanks ever so
said that,
much.
Kevin, there was just the other day a similar working group for tinnitus. I don't know, that was a working group in Parliament. Many of my tinnitus colleagues went down to London for that, and if you Google that, you should be able to see all that they did. So Steve, I think your work's amazing, and it's not that some of us haven't tried to raise awareness for many years, but let's continue, let's not give up. GPs are difficult because they can't be masters of all disciplines. And so with GPs, it's more making GPs aware of dizziness and where to refer on. And then, of course, we have got many very experienced clinicians across the country, which can be accessible for those sort of specialist regions of services of excellence. But with the era of modern technology and being able to email and speak virtually to each other, we do commonly do that already for our more complicated patients. But yes, let's hope you can get Parliament to talk about the hidden disability of dizziness and continue to raise awareness. So thank you, and please let me know if any of me or my colleagues you'd like us to get involved along with you and Kevin.
No, it'd be lovely. One last thing, I've just brought you in, Claire, on the recording. Claire did this wonderful survey of the members, their experience with the NHS. And we did put an appeal out a couple of months ago for all of you members to send in any contacts you've got of NHS departments where you've had treatment. The problem is there's no central database. What we want to do is share your survey results that Claire put together so wonderfully. Want to send those out to as many NHS departments dealing with BANS conditions that we can find. It will be on the email after this meeting, but it's just anyone and everyone. We want to share the fact we exist so they can share it with patients yet to be, who can find us as soon as possible. Debbie, just a thought. I picked that up after the meeting, whether you may have contacts with your network
Yeah, so what we're
that could be
about to do
useful.
actually, what we're about to do through the Mania Society, it's Manias and Vestibular Disorders Association, which is a large charity, which Kevin, I know you know about, and provides lots of help to those of you with dizziness already. We're going to have a clinician WhatsApp group where we can do sharing of difficult cases and resources in one big WhatsApp group. There's already one for tinnitus, which was started fairly recently and really taken off. So I've contacted the tinnitus guy and he's happy that we start something up from a clinician point of view. These WhatsApp groups can be really, really useful if set up in the right way. So yeah, we're gonna do that. And then we've just set up a more recently a research. We're calling ourselves Wobble. Working group of brain-based balance, because some of us researchers who are looking into the mechanisms of chronic dizziness. So it's all about knowing where all these groups are and getting people to join them. But I think that's a
Yeah,
really, really
no,
good idea.
absolutely. And as I say, from our perspective, again, another one of the reasons we started 8, 9 years ago was we found balance conditions so fragmented and the treatment fragmented, and there's all different routes into having a balance problem. We're just about bringing everyone together. We've got so much in common, so much that we share, whatever our diagnosis, whatever our route in, and together we can be more powerful in lobbying for better
Absolutely.
resources. So I think we're all on the same side. One last thing before we start quizzing you, Debbie, with our members' questions. Um, the email will follow after this about how to send in information about your NHS department. So don't email yet, because there's a certain format we ask for from you. And Debbie just mentioned something about a WhatsApp group. This will be on the next email. We already have 3 WhatsApp groups ourselves made up of members. The most successful one of all is the Triple PD group run by Gainer, and that's over 30 plus members. So that plus something called member to member network, where you can opt in to share email other members. I do really recommend any new members consider joining the WhatsApp groups or the member to member group, because it's so amazing when you get to meet these new people. You can make friends for life, people who get you. They totally understand what you're going through because they're going through exactly the same. So I think, Claire, are we ready to bombard Debbie with lots of questions? I have some as well, Debbie, at the end, but let's go through what the members have got for you, please. Over to you, Claire.
Trying to find, scrolling back. Okay, first one I can see is from Vimla. Her vestibular physio has set her various exercises. How often should she be doing these, and how much time should she allocate? Her physio suggested twice a day should be fine. And as a
Right.
second part, would you recommend reflexology?
Okay, so vestibular rehabilitation is to getting the brain to recalibrate or compensate, and is a very individualized process. Okay, so whatever your physio has told you, do. If you're finding it's overwhelming the system, then go back and saying that you're getting much dizzier than you were. But I can't tell you whether you should do it 2 or 3 or 5 times a day, because I haven't assessed you. And it's about finding a set of things that makes you feel mildly dizzy if you don't have dizziness when you're still, or exacerbates over and above baseline, whether it's movement, whether it's visual stimulations, whether it's walking, whether it's standing. And what you're doing is you're giving the error signals to the brain in a calm way, hence the ability to be okay with the dizziness and say, brain, please, can you do use your remarkable powers of plasticity and adapt and recalibrate. Does that make sense? Myself, depend on the average patient, there's more evidence that's doing something called gaze stability exercises. You need to do more of those. So for a patient that I would see, if they're up to it and they don't have 3PD, if people have got 3PD, I might just get people to do a meditation with a little bit of head movement. That it's all about picking an appropriate level for you, the person with dizziness. and it's best done by someone who's skilled in doing that, and then they will teach you how to then pick a level as you go on and move through your program. Reflexology, I don't know a lot about. I know there's limited, really robust evidence for some of these alternative techniques, but you could see there is limited evidence for mindfulness. And if it helps you, it helps you, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Sarah Harris. She wants to know where she can find a vestibular rehab specialist. She's currently seeing a neurophysio.
So a neurophysio may be exactly the kind of person that you see. There's a number of different disciplines that do vestibular rehabilitation, and physiotherapists and audiologists and hearing therapists are three of those disciplines. So physiotherapists, their skill is in rehabilitation, whether it's musculoskeletal problems or vestibular problems. In terms of physiotherapists, they need to be sort of trained in vestibular rehabilitation, rather, because not all physiotherapists are trained in that area. As to where you find one, firstly, you would go to your local NHS department and ask to be referred to whatever services they provide there, because you should be able to get all this on the NHS.
Okay. This question isn't for you, Debbie, but I'm just going to throw it in before I forget. There's a message from Paul for Steve saying, can you send the link for the article for the Daily Mail? He'd love to look it up. Now, I think Kevin might be able to put that in the chat, or he can probably add it to the email
Yeah,
afterwards.
we've got that on our website, so I'll try and find the link before the meeting finishes. But I'll put it in the email that's going out to the members anyway. But I'm sure there is a link on our website in the news and blog section.
Yeah, and just as a personal thanks to Steve, I can't believe my survey's actually made it so far in the world. I'm absolutely chuffed. Thank you so much.
No, it's brilliant.
Just reading through some of these comments is quite interesting. I want to make it clear that mindfulness is a technique, and it's not going to get rid of your dizziness or get rid of your tinnitus. It forms part of a tailored package, a rehabilitation program, and awareness can be good, but can be not so good. So I see so many of you, and I hadn't realized so many of you had so much tinnitus that you're immediately noticing your tinnitus, or you might immediately notice your dizziness. And so that's fine. And remember that it's not, you don't need to then focus on that tinnitus or dizziness. Mindfulness is at the right time, intentionally taking your attention away from focusing on it and the negative emotions it's giving you initially, because we don't want to be focusing on our tinnitus all the time. However, if we're rushing around all the time in an attempt not to notice it, we get tired and tired and tired. And so that's why further on in a mindfulness program, when we can ground and take our attention away, we then learn to turn towards it with curiosity. So it no longer evokes the kind of, or I can't stand this kind of response. So it sounds like I'm being completely inconsistent, but we need to have the techniques to be able to ground and turn our attention away from the difficult times, but also later on be able to turn towards and reassure ourselves that it's okay to turn down that threat response.
Okay. Debbie, I've got a question which would kind of help me when I'm talking to especially new members. Is there a reason, certainly in my day, and I suspect it's not changed, when I was going through the classic NHS treatment, even private treatment, I was being treated for specifically the symptoms of Meniere's. No one ever discussed, by the way, it's really, really common that you'll have secondary suffering in terms of this mental anguish, fear, grieving, never mentioned. Is that policy because they're worried they're going to mention it to people that aren't going to have those problems? Or is it just, well, we can't do anything for you?
I hope now, Kevin, that has changed and I spend a lot
Yeah.
of time talking
Yeah.
to doctors and clinicians and to students. We've moved away from the medical model of you as a person with dizziness and treating your symptoms to a biopsychosocial model to you, the patient, with a host of physical and understandable but sometimes unhelpful emotional symptoms. And you are a patient, you're a person with dizziness, not just a set of symptoms. And so, as you realize from me banging on about this for years, I feel that is really, really important. And even if your manias attacks do stop, you may be semi-traumatized by the effect that they've had on you. So this holistic approach should now be taught and is fundamentally important to treat the person as a person with a selection of symptoms and just not a set of symptoms. But not everyone does that. And of course, our dear ENT colleagues, they haven't got enough time. So it's about finding someone. I mean, I banged on very quickly for an hour and a half. I could bang on for hours and hours and hours. I can give you a medication and it may or may not help your symptoms. And that takes 10 minutes to explain what it's going to do and ask whether you want it. This stuff is much deeper, isn't it? This mindfulness, this mind-body link, what's happening in our minds, which may be making our symptoms worse or, of course, better and can help.
I mean, it may be slightly self-selecting. I get the longest emails and get to talk to people who are potentially most troubled by their
Yeah.
balance disorders, but certainly the impression I'm left with is it's still not happening. And I tell you for why, because most members, sadly, think they are going crazy. They think
Yep.
it's just them. They go, why am I reacting like this? Why do I think my life's over when I'm being told it's just a balance condition?
And
And
of
I'm
course,
so
the first, when we
surprised.
get acute dizziness or acute tinnitus, we automatically think I'm having a stroke or a heart attack or I've got a brain tumor. And so that initial appointment with whoever you get to see is so important.
Yeah.
And it's not just a collection of symptoms. And I mean, I hope it is improving, but I fear that, as you say, it's not as ubiquitous as it should be. And again, unfortunately, it's a time thing in the NHS. The under-resourcing and capacity issues we have in the NHS means that not everyone will have the number of appointments that would really help them, which is sad. And this is why, Steve, and your work is so important. Raising awareness is so important because it's a hidden disability. And I look at you all now, and you're all lovely, beautiful, happy, shiny people. I don't know what's going on inside you. If you were in a wheelchair or your arms and legs were in plaster, yeah, then people can relate to that more, that physical disability. And this is what somehow we've got to get across to our MPs, to our parliaments, to our GPs, our clinicians who don't know about it because
Yeah.
it's hidden.
And then I'm totally on board with that. The problem we all know with governments and NHS is the time it can take for that change. So I almost every day have to deal with the here and now, where I'm talking to a member who's got this crisis of how do I cope? How do I get through this? How do I survive? How do I keep running my family with children? How do I keep my job? Is there any advice that you could give for me and that people will see on this video? How do you quickly get people to understand that there is this secondary suffering and they need help to understand this, to begin to make sense of recovery? How it's, and I try and frame this challenge in the people I meet are so stressed, are so mentally fatigued. It would be like trying to say to them, look at this color blue when they're telling you they're colorblind. How do we get through to people that are at that peak of stress that they need this help, this support?
So, I mean, part of it is the support around them that they can get from friends and family and groups like this, because it's groups like this that really understand and can give people the time that maybe their primary health providers can't, and to seek getting that help, even if it takes time. The other thing is really trying to get across how you feel when you look fine. And I don't know whether anyone's sort of seen the project I did a few years ago with the Mania Society to represent how you feel with a piece of art. And there's been, because sometimes it's really, oh, what's dizziness? Oh, yeah. People say, oh, I felt dizziness as well. And you think you have no idea what I'm going through. And sometimes a piece of art or poetry can really make that the GP or the loved one think, whoa, okay, this isn't just the little bit of dizziness I had when I was drunk or when I got up too quickly. And I think being able to connect and get how we feel both physically and mentally, as well as our physical symptoms of dizziness or tinnitus, all that additional secondary suffering, which is normal but unhelpful and makes things worse. That's what we need to get across to people who are supporting us, whether it's our medics, our rehab specialists, or whether it's our friends and family, because everyone looks fine. And so therefore, people don't understand.
Yeah. And of course, I went through this myself, and I'm sure most in this meeting have, that at the worst times, the most bleak periods, you just think it's going to last like this forever. You think this is my life. It's never going to improve. The good news to everyone watching, things do improve. Whether it's, as Debbie said, there was an interesting thing in there. I can't remember if it was slide 14, where you said if you can turn towards these problems, if you can begin to understand what's happening and almost rationalize it, the symptoms seem to diminish. It's as though we begin to take more control of our lives, and the illness has got less of a grip on us.
So the two things that I do right at the beginning when people get to see me, which help almost better than anything else I give them, is having someone listening and validating and saying, you're not going mad, you're not making it up. And also education. You are feeling the way that you are feeling because whether it's 3PD, whether it's BPPV, whether it's manias. And once you understand at whatever level it is, whether it's PhD level or GCSE English level, that person will begin to feel more empowered because they understand what's going on in their bodies and that it's not their fault, however hidden it is. And once you understand, then and you have other people supporting you, then you can sort of move forwards. And so it's the validation that's it's being listened to, whether it's your friends or family, or whether it's some kind of counselor, because they will listen and understand and relate, together with understanding what is happening. And your brain, for chronic dizziness, which is my fear, your brain is just trying to keep you safe. Yeah. And it's trying to keep you safe. It's unfortunately being a little bit of an overprotective parent. Now, I'm sure lots of us have been overprotective parents. And what we're trying to say is, brain, thank you for keeping me safe. When I had that acute dizzy, that first Meniere's attack, if you hadn't have made me sit down, stop driving, etc., and be anxious, then I would have been in difficulty because I would have jumped in the car. So that was an appropriate response. Now, the low-level constant chronic dizziness is no longer an appropriate response, but I'm not going to get cross with you, brain. I just need to sort of show you that you're being overprotective and it's unhelpful, and we need to change that response. Now, medication is not going to do that. But time and understanding and trying some of these mindfulness techniques. And yeah, when you're having an acute Meniere's attack, you don't focus in on the dizziness and try and be okay with it. You use your distraction techniques, your grounding techniques, your medication. And you have a toolkit of things for you, which may be completely different from Kevin's toolkit or my toolkit, that work for you when you're tired, when you're dizzy, when you've gotten an acute attack, when you're feeling depressed, etc., etc. And you add to that all the time.
Good. No, brilliant. Claire, more questions?
I don't. I've got one sort of myself, really, just from what Debbie was saying. So, yeah, we need to get in with the education for the patient and make them feel listened to. But they don't need that 6 months after their attack, and that's where they're getting it. And it's too late. They've had 6 months and they're in a state. So it's
So
what
Yeah.
this
Steve.
is why we need to go back to primary care. But I am an elderly woman now, and I have been trying to raise awareness within primary care for years and years and years. And it's not that we don't stop trying to raise that awareness. And just for Balance Awareness Week last September, I did some stuff to help raise awareness in GPs and what you guys with dizziness want the GPs to know and to understand. And we need to keep on with that. And we need to keep on with the fact that, okay, GPs, you need to rule out anything sinister, and then you need to refer on quickly, because then you're going to stop the constant low level 3PD dizziness that's not going to be stopped if you don't tell the patient what you think is happening, if you stuff them full of medication.
No, great.
So
Gaynor,
it's
you,
at primary care level, but it's difficult.
Yeah.
Debbie, we've got a question from Gaynor. If you can go ahead, Gaynor, please.
Hi there, Debbie. Thank you so much for your talk. It was really interesting. I've been doing meditation mindfulness for a long time, and I found it something that was really difficult to get into. It's something that seems like it should be quite easy, but actually is not necessarily. Do you have any sort of hints and tips for people apart from what you've given, like, thinking about something that you would recommend people do every day, or just
Yeah.
dip in and out
So
of, or and
you're
time
absolutely
wise?
right. You're absolutely right. It is against our sort of busy 24/7 lifestyle. In Western society, we are human beings, not human doings. We're rushing around, making best use of our time, and it's against our instinct to sit down and be. Okay, so when I did my first mindfulness course, as I've alluded to, having problems, mental health problems, and fantastic, they sent me to this 8-week course. I was really quite cross because I prefer to kayak on the Wednesday evening. They sat me down and they said, right, there's lots of funny people as well, and I want you to do 30 minutes twice a day. And day one, I failed. Okay, so it's just bringing awareness and these little mini mindful moments. So rather than stuffing that sandwich down your face at lunchtime, can you actually spend 30 seconds? Can you look at the sandwich? Can you smell the sandwich? Can you eat it mindfully? Can you wash your hands mindfully? Can you walk a little bit slower from the car to the car park? If you're doing a bit of exercise, you don't need to be sitting for half an hour being cross about what you've been asked to do. Mindfulness is awareness, whether you're a monk and you sit and meditate for 8 hours a day, or whether you just stop, take a breath, observe and proceed. So start small. There's a good book by James Clear about habit forming. We need to make it a habit. So you probably, and I have no judgment here if you don't do this, everyone, you probably wouldn't leave the house without brushing your teeth in the morning. Yeah, even if you were late, I personally wouldn't. Can you brush your teeth mindfully? Can you attach it to something that you always do? In the NHS, Claire and I are always washing our hands, as we should. We have choice there. Do we wash our hands mindfully, or do we think about the next patient? And then reward yourself. We're not children, but at the same time, and what I find very useful is there's a number of different apps, and I'm on one at the moment called Insight Timer, and every so often I really am being a little bit like a child here. They offer little courses. And I was speaking to someone else the other day, and they'd done the same, another patient that I put in contact with. And because it said, well done, you've done 3 days in a row, I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'll do the 4th day in a row, and the 5th day in a row, and the 6th day in a row. But those kind of things, so making small things that you know that you can achieve, that you attach to things that are already in your routine, or make specific time to do it. So the other thing is I get up 15 minutes earlier than I have to, not all the time, and then there's this gap before I go to work. And then rewarding yourself, and then building from there. And knowing that you don't need to sit on a stool and breathe. You can walk mindfully, you can do some mindful movement, you can eat mindfully, you can do mindfulness is bringing awareness. And that mindfulness time will be best if you're not relaxed, if your mind keeps on wandering all over the place, if you notice your body is tense. Mindfulness is actually least beneficial if you think, oh, this is just lovely and wonderful. It's lovely, but actually it's not that kind of awareness that you want.
Good. Gaynor, thanks. And Gaynor, by the way, runs that wonderful WhatsApp group for Triple PD. So keep it going, Gaynor. Thank you very much. Cheers. Claire, any more comments? I just want to mention one comment I've just seen from new member Sarah, who says she wished she'd found the group so much earlier. This is our point, Debbie. If only we could get awareness out there, we could save so many years of suffering. And it's so frustrating because we
Kevin,
have
I
no
mean,
money
what we need
to
to do
advertise.
is, so what we need to do, and I don't know, excuse me if I'm missing any other clinicians, like the only other clinician I know here is Claire. So we give patient information sheets. So on my patient information sheet, I put all the list of contacts and groups. It's got the Mania Society, it's got you. You know, almost we need to give, when people go to GPs and the GPs hasn't got much time, we could give them an information sheet with all these points of contact on and support groups, whether it's using mine or Claire's information sheets. That kind of thing would be a really good thing for maybe you guys to get out there as well.
And I say in a nutshell, what this group's about is to try and save unnecessary suffering. It's a lovely way of seeing us. And it's so frustrating. It upsets me so much when I see people saying, I've suffered on my own for so many years. It's such a waste of humanity. But we'll get there. And I say we'll get there today.
Stay positive and don't give up.
Oh, we don't know. Don't worry. There's
yeah.
no chance of that. We're never giving up.
Never.
Now, any more questions, Claire? Because we're going to have to wrap this up very shortly.
Specialist, I suspect there is not. You just have to look for your own area. We don't go on a register or anything. Debbie, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, you broke up a bit there, Claire.
Do you want to know if there's a list of VR specialists? I suspect not.
The thing to look at is, I mean, well, as I said before, go to your local NHS department, audiology or physio department. I think if you look on, but it's more of a clinician website, the Association ACPIVAR, the Association of, do you know what that means, Claire? There's a vestibular rehabilitation physiotherapy group. And there is also on the Mania Society, I think they're gathering sort of lists of people who provide services together. Association of Chartered Physiotherapists in Vestibular Rehabilitation, ACPIVAR.
Writing that down for myself.
So there are a number of professional groups, but also I think, or that's again something else that Claire and Kevin maybe working collaboratively with the Mania Society to get a good list of where the problem is that vestibular rehabilitation is best done in person. So whereas my counselling, which I do for 3PD, and my mindfulness is fine online, when we're giving people exercises which make them feel dizzier. So you guys are mainly in Leicester. I wouldn't want to give you VR being down here virtually. So you do need a sort of local list of people as well, just for your safety.
Good. Any more, Claire?
You don't for all the talking therapy that I've been talking about. And so I think, you know, for me, where clinicians go wrong sometimes with rehabilitation, especially for 3PD, is they introduce the vestibular rehabilitation exposure phase too early. And all you're asking people to do is the dizzy person who's all very, very dizzy and anxious, you're asking them to make them feel more dizzy and more anxious. So this is why all the other stuff that I've talked about needs to come first. And then sometimes you don't need vestibular rehabilitation, or sometimes you do, and to do it very, very slowly with all those other techniques that you've been taught at your level, which may be completely different from my level. and knowing what you can and can't do, which is why I think mindfulness is really important. And just with my straightforward VR patients, I get them to ground in between each exercise, because you need to evoke the symptoms and then let them subside. And rather than thinking, as my symptoms subsided, take your attention to the breath and the body and the feet, and then move on to your next.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Request from Susie to share the link for the art project. I'm sure we can do that.
Yep. It's just on the Mania Society.
Asking about escitalopram.
Oh, what?
Escitalopram. I presume it's a drug, obviously, but
Oh, citalopram.
apparently so.
Okay, so I mean, we're not talking about medications today, but there's a whole lot of medications which are either what we call vestibular suppressants, so they suppress the signals coming from the balance system, or anti-sickness, anti-emetic tablets, because we know that dizziness can lead to nausea, nausea lead to dizziness, etc., etc. And those should only be given short term in terms of vestibular suppressants by GPs or practitioners who can give those. I can't see the other medications which are sometimes given for 3PD are SSRIs, and that's more to help with the mood and anxiety. The evidence base of that is fairly low, but it can be quite revolutionary for some people if they've got dizziness and associated anxiety, and that anxiety is preventing them from getting on with therapy. And then we have a whole set of medications which are used either to prevent or to abort migraine, and similarly for Meniere's disease. So we have suppressants, we have anti-sickness, we have antidepressants and anti-anxiety, and we have medications for migraine and Meniere's. But the precise one without seeing the name is difficult, but that just needs to be given by a medical professional. I can't prescribe.
Okay, I think there's lots of lovely comments, but I think that's all the questions.
No, that is wonderful. Again, just a quick reminder to members, and it'll be on the video, the next meeting, June the 13th, always on a Saturday, always 1 p.m. August the 15th is when we get Professor Ray taking members' questions. And I've got to say, Debbie, thank you so much for giving your time today and your knowledge, sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience is brilliant. And it's going to help so many people, not only the audience today, but so many who watch this in the future. Claire, thanks
Thank you,
for
and
your
keep
time.
in contact, connection amongst positive groups like you, not negative groups, but to keep the groups really positive is so important. Connections between you guys, connections with us clinicians. We don't know how we can support you unless you tell us how we can support.
And
So
we are going to do that. And thanks, Steve, for the MP work as well. Thanks to everyone watching, you are going to get to these better places. We're going to help you get there. It's learning, time, good treatment, appropriate treatment. And yes, there's so much more work to do out there with the NHS and get more resources. We all know that. But in the meantime, let's do what we can in the real time to make things better now, better qualities of life. That's what we all want. Thank you all for attending. Thanks for making this group what it is. Debbie, Claire, Steve, lovely. And I'll see you all at the next meeting. And you can unmute now and go crazy and cheer and clap and everything. So well done, everyone.
Very strong, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you all at the next meeting.
Bye.
Take care, all of you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.